Colossal prison industrial complex, this colossal bureaucracy that we have to fight the war on drugs.
We are not going to arrest basically the backbone, the fabric of America today. You got 80 million Americans who have tried or used marijuana. We're talking about doctors, lawyers, judges, scientists, entrepreneurs, athletes. We're talking about the backbone of America, the marrow of America that does smoke or has smoked marijuana.
Marijuana is Schedule 1. Do you think marijuana belongs in Schedule 1?
I'm not sure what the politics of that is, to be honest with you.
What about countries like Amsterdam, where they have not so much legalized, but they've decriminalized, and they claim that it's helped crime and that it's helped addiction?
Amsterdam, when I've been there, you have to cross over bodies lying on the street because they're high on drugs. They're just lying on the corner. You have to jump over them when you want to go somewhere.
Less than a week after baking in the sun at Sheriff Joe's tent city, I decided to take a quick trip to see if he was being 100% honest about the effects of Dutch drug laws on the streets of Amsterdam. When I arrived, I was joined by a friend of a friend who had grown up in Amsterdam and knew the streets like the back of his hand. Yes, we did see drug dealers, but they were extremely polite and always backed away after realizing I was not looking for drugs. And unlike Sheriff Joe, who was crossing over bodies, we ended up having to pay a dealer to introduce us to a single enthusiastic crack smoker.
This is crack, man. This is crack in Amsterdam. The crack.
Well, what do you think about the fact that you can do this on the streets here without being taken to prison?
Because we pay tax for use.
Yeah? But what do you think about it? Like, what do you think about American drug laws as compared to these drug laws?
They are very harsh in America.
Yeah?
You can't even smoke a joint of marijuana.
Yeah, I know.
You get into problems, you know. Here, you get it. Coffee shops, that's why I don't understand why they can legalize this shit, you know.
But what do you think about the fact that in America, like, they're filling up the prisons with people that just want to do drugs?
It's not right. They gotta try another different approach, like taking care of the people, you know, who are addicted. They give them places to use the shit and taking care of people who don't have a house to sleep. That's the way they do it here in Holland.
All right, dude.
By total coincidence, we found ourselves at the 420 bar on April 20th. Unbeknownst to me, 420 is a very significant date in the worldwide pot-smoking community.
My name is Michael Veling. I'm the owner of this bar cum coffee shop, which means that you can drink a beer in here and you can also buy a bag of grass, if you so wish. I've had this place for 18 years and I've never had a fight in here.
American comedian Tom Rhodes moved to Holland, where he became the Dutch equivalent of David Letterman.
Mr. Tom Rhodes.
People think that all drugs are legal there. It's not true. And actually, marijuana and hash is not legal. It's tolerated, as are mushrooms. All organic drugs are tolerated.
I don't have much to say about Dutch drug policy. Their model applied to the United States would be inappropriate, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to legalize drugs. Drugs are already decriminalized by and large in the United States.
What have they done in Holland? Well, they realize, of course, that the drugs are here to stay, and let's try to manage the problem. And they have put in a really effective harm reduction program.
You know, in Holland, they call people junkies who do anything too much. If you drink too much, you're considered a junkie. If you smoke too much weed, you're considered a junkie. Which, when I first moved over there and I heard people go, oh, he's a junkie, I always thought they were talking about heroin.
What has happened? Well, the Minister of Health of Holland held a press conference a few years ago saying, you know something? We have only half the marijuana usage in Holland as you do in your country, both for adults and for teenagers. He said, we have succeeded in Holland in making pot boring.
Holland has 60% the drug use is that of the United States, and that's among kids and adults, and that's for marijuana and harder drugs.
If you do weed and it leads to coke and then you do heroin, that's really the individual's own psycho problem.
In Amsterdam, people addicted to heroin need not resort to stealing or prostitution. The Rainbow is a free clinic that allows junkies to come in off the street for a fix of government-controlled heroin and a clean syringe.
Heroin addicts are pitied, and the government does the best they can to try and get them off heroin. Like last year in the papers, Dutch doctors said that they think they should be treating heroin addicts with heroin instead of methadone and morphine because they think that just makes the addicts addicted to those things.
Methadone withdrawal is like 5 times as long as heroin withdrawal. I guess also the point of methadone is to, like, you know, get yourself out of the hole.
I don't support that all drugs should be legal. You know, I don't think heroin should be legal. I think it ruins people's lives, and I've seen cocaine ruin a lot of people's lives and turn good people into total assholes. I think that the organic basis for the drug law that Holland has, and, you know, and their entire system isn't right, you know, but, you know, the fact that, you know, mushrooms and marijuana and hash, you know, it comes from the earth, so they've got more of a Christian idea of creation and what is supposed to be used to help us get along in this little journey.
The Dutch drug policy is very successful. If you compare the statistics of this country and you compare them to other countries where there's a much less lenient policy on drugs, you would be surprised to find out that Holland has very low figures.
Amsterdam is not legal, it's semi-legal. When you go into a coffee house, you can smoke a couple of marijuana cigarettes or hashish, but it's still against the law to sell it and to have large quantities. But it doesn't work. The English system has never worked. You should never, never legalize drugs.
Okay, Kevin, we're gonna hit it. Hit it, take it off.
I remember it wasn't long after looking down my nose at Jana for her heroin addiction that I found myself addicted to prescription pain pills. A series of childhood accidents from motocross, gymnastics, and high diving had left me with a compressed disc in my lower spine. Now my biggest nightmare of all time had become true. Not only was I an addict, but I had something in common with Rush Limbaugh. Life can be cruel. The joke was really on me when I learned that quitting Vicodin and OxyContin could actually be harder than quitting heroin due to the high precision of synthetic opiates.
Rush Limbaugh, as far as I'm concerned, he's a victim. He's a victim of this of the drug war, because he got hurt. He got addicted to OxyContin, which is like heroin. Apparently, it's harder to get off than heroin, and he got so addicted that he had to go illegal. But Rush, personally, I have compassion for him, and I feel sorry for him, and I would like to turn him on to pot. You know, if he needs something to mellow out, you know, smoke a joint, Rush. That's my prescription to you.
Most people don't realize this, but CIA has the highest alcoholism, adultery, divorce, and suicide rates, other than the post office. Most people at CIA drink too much. And I know for a fact that there are people at CIA that smoke marijuana. And they're just hoping they won't get caught on their next lie detector test. Marijuana is, like alcohol, something that people want to use. And I have no problem with it as long as they're not driving a car.
Ask yourself, what would happen if the United States of America or California or any of our states were to treat marijuana like alcohol?
This right here is 1/4 ounce bag of the Jack Herer.
And the answer is 3 things would happen right away. All of them would be good. The first thing, and I'm in California so I can talk about my native state. The first thing is that the taxpayers of California would save about $1 billion that they spend in 1 year alone to try to eradicate marijuana and prosecute and incarcerate nonviolent marijuana users.
Just awesome weed, man.
And by the way, marijuana is the largest cash crop in the state of California today, even though it is illegal. So you can tell how successful we are at that. Number 2 is grapes, by the way, if you care. The second thing that would happen is we could tax the stupid stuff and generate revenue of at least $1.5 billion every year just by the tax base.
Not cheap.
Now already we have a change in our budget deficit in California alone for a year of about $2.5 billion. Imagine what we could do with that money. And the third thing, it seems to me, trumps the first two. The third thing is we would make marijuana less available for our children than it is today. Why? Because the alcohol is regulated and controlled by the government, and illegal drug dealers, illegal marijuana dealers, control the sale of marijuana. And as a result, they don't ask for ID.
I think if you wanted to start to do this, and that's why the DEA has fought it so hard, you would start by legalizing medical marijuana across the board. But you've seen how hard DEA has fought. They'll stop shipments of birdseed coming across the Canadian border that don't even have any THC content or can't get you high, can't grow any plants. And they will fight that tooth and nail because that's how flimsy the facade of the drug war is.
If you want to come home to your home, smoke marijuana, then that's your business. That's not the government's business. Now, our government has always told us it's addicted and, you know, and so forth, but marijuana has been around for many years and has never killed anybody.
What's your opinions about medical marijuana?
Well, that's a tough one. Tough one. If it's issued by tight controls by a physician, I don't know if I oppose that. If someone's dying of cancer and that's going to help that person, I don't know if I'm strictly opposed to medical marijuana you're probably talking about. It can help the dying patient, but it has to be dispensed by a doctor, just like codeine and other drugs. Doctors dispense other drugs.
So the secret through all of this, I've been doing this for a lot of years, the secret boils down to one thing. Prohibition never works as well as regulation and control. Let me say that again. Prohibition never works as well as regulation and control. That doesn't mean that we abandon our children to cocaine use or marijuana use or anything else, but as soon as you prohibit something, you give up all control. And now the only people in control are the illegal drug sellers, and they do want your 14-year-old daughter to get hooked on cocaine.
Before, when you went to buy marijuana, you didn't find cocaine or heroin there. You didn't see guns. It wasn't a violent scene. That's why it was easy to catch us.
Due to the lack of profit potential, another category of naturally occurring drugs is rarely discussed when debating the drug war.
I just wonder what your opinions are about the use of the ritualistic drugs.
It's a question I rush to avoid. It's, you know, and I don't mean to be critical, but it's such a tiny, silly thing. It's almost not worth commenting on.
The Native Americans have had to fight long and hard for the use of peyote for their religious practice. Shamanism is the oldest religion in the world, and the war on drugs directly imposes itself upon our religious freedom and in fact, what is the oldest religion known to humankind.
Tribal members report a reduced rate in alcoholism, gambling addiction, and even drug addiction for those who go through the ancient hallucinogenic rituals.
We try to keep our young people from using alcohol and drugs through these ceremonies and telling them, you know, showing them the way of life that we're supposed to be living.
I think probably if there was a claim that, you know, that these kind of drugs actually help deal with alcohol abuse, that's probably silly. We had to get our treatment protocols from NIDA, not from malarkey.
Thousands of years of ancient tribal tradition now boiled down into one word.
Malarkey.
Known for being the man who introduced Timothy Leary to LSD, Dr. Gary Fisher believes that the drug war and religious suppression are one and the same.
The psychedelic drugs have been used through time in very positive ways, and they do not present a threat to anybody except the power establishment.
After getting word that my father's condition had taken a turn for the worse, I spoke with a doctor who uses hallucinogenic drugs in order to prepare terminally ill people for the inevitable transition.
In terms of the hallucinogens per se, my interest rests primarily in their potential application as